All right. And the first slide is one that just advises that, first of all, we're recording the session today. And the reason for that is that we go through the presentation quite quickly. But at the end of it, I will be sending you both the presentation itself and the recording so that you can go over it should you need to in your own time later. And then I send you an email with details of some of the stuff that we were talking about, and hints and tips on things that may save you a little time when you get going. So please, by all means, interrupt me if I'm going too quickly or too slowly or something that you haven't quite grabbed, but let's press on. So we're going to cover today the licenses that you need to get the best out of the system, which probably, it sounds as if the both of you don't need those, but we'll just go through the sort of presentation in anyway. Then we go through how it works and what it can do, why you use maps and layers, how you can improve the way that you're trying to convince people using the system. And then we're going to play with it yourself so that you actually both get a chance to give it a try. And then we'll have a couple of more slides at the end just to cover the basics that we haven't gone over them, and then we'll finish up. So there are two licenses that help you get the best from Parish Online, and I suspect you've both got these already, but the public sector geospatial agreement is entirely free to local councils. You just need to sign up for it. And what the difference is, if you look in the right-hand side of the slide, you go from this sort of detail to that sort of detail, because the PSGA agreement gives you access to the high definition map that the Ordnance Survey puts out. And by the same token, that entitles you to the aerial photography stuff, which takes you from this sort of detail to that sort of detail. So it's worth having. The next slide shows you how to get it. Again, I'm just going to go through the motions, but I think you probably both already have it. So in the top right-hand corner of Parish Online, there is a cogwheel. Click on that and you get a little mini menu. Click on Help and Support. And it takes you to this new Knowledge Center, which is a very new part of Parish Online and may take a little bit of getting used to. But if you just type in PSGA in the search box, it comes up and says getting your PSGA number, and you just follow through the steps for that. And that enables you to have the best version, if you will. So what we're going to do now is just briefly go over how the system works and what it can do, and then we'll get into actually doing that. So what you have is a browser-only access to a complete mapping system. The browser-only means that you don't need to download any software. All you need is a reasonable connection to the internet. And everything is very safely stored up in the cloud. And the idea is to give you digital mapping that you can use to make things a lot clearer for your council business. So it's very easy to use, but there's an initial sort of learning curve that we'll get over today. But once you've got the hang of that, I think you find it very straightforward. But should you need help, there's lots of it available. So there's all these options. The knowledge base is really good for helping you with any issues on which you're not sure. And there are some pretty good training videos in there. And then there's a user group, and there's also the training such as we're doing now, which covers all sorts of courses all the way through to become a guru for using Parish Online, should you wish to. So all those facilities available to you. Why do you want to have a map in the first place? Well, everything in the world has a place. And what you can do with digital mapping is click on any item and up will pop data on it. So it's what I call location-based data. And it's very simple. If you want to know about something, click on its location. And if there is any data, you can see it straight away. And if there isn't, you can create it. So the sorts of things that councils use this for are all the stuff that you're doing on a daily basis. So if you're responsible for running mowing contracts with local contractors, the map is a wonderful way of coming up with the bits of grass for which you want him to cut. So you can make sure that you're both working on the same page, so to speak. Lots of people buy Parish Online in the first place because they want to create a neighborhood plan, and it's certainly very good for providing the maps for that. There's a built-in asset management system, which we'll talk about later, and is actually the subject of an entire training course on its own. And lots of requirements for insurance needs. Cemetery management is actually more fun than it sounds. And basically all the things that you're doing as an everyday life parish clerk, Parish Online is there to help you improve and speed up your work, surprisingly. So what you're doing is basically moving everything out of the paper filing cabinet into a digital system that you can get access to at any time. So one of the advantages of this is available 24/7. Another one is that you can have lots of users in the system at the same time. So you're not fighting to give bits of paper to people. You can just send them the address and tell them to go ahead and look for themselves. It's a great way of handing over to any successor because information doesn't get lost in the meantime. And if you go away on holiday and take the key to the filing cabinet with you, it's not a strain on the rest of the council. They've still got this to go to. So it's a really useful way of bringing it up to date. I've gone backwards, sorry, let's go forwards. Go that way. So it also gives you the chance to create your own digital maps, which we will certainly be doing this morning, which is very helpful. So you can print the maps out on pieces of paper if you're still working in the 19th century, or you can send them out to people via email as PDF files or as graphic files, depending on which purpose you need them for. But getting information out of Parish Online is a piece of cake and very, very helpful. So where does the data come from? So the system will explain later about layers, but you've basically got lots of layers of information coming from all sorts of places. There are literally hundreds of layers, which sounds awful, but in fact, that's very, very useful. And you're getting these inputs from all over the country, from both private organizations like the National Allotment Society to anything to do with government. The basic maps themselves come from the Ordnance Survey. The Land Registry has got a really useful layer in there for helping you identify which parcels of land are actually in the registry and give you a reference number to look them up. And there's tons of stuff from highways and everyone else. And if you happen to have a locally switched on local authority, like your district council, your county council, or unitary, if you've gone unitary, they can give you layers as well. So how do people use this? Well, case studies are wonderful examples of what other people have done with the system. And I'm giving you some examples here. So as I said before, neighborhood planning is often the first reason that people buy Parish Online. And it's great for giving addresses. It's great for getting addresses out to use, particularly in COVID times. If people are in distress and you need to know where they are and where the nearest volunteer is to them, then having the address system is really helpful. This is an example of ways in which people have used the system. So you've got the straight map, and then you say, let's have an area that we're not going to develop. So we'll touch that in green, and that tells you where you can't sort of give planning permission and so forth. Then you can say, on the other hand, these are areas where we might endorse some development. The brownfield sites where we might do industrial work. And then you can sort of make sure that people's access to views and so forth aren't blocked. And this sort of diagram helps you see the impact of what you're doing. So useful stuff. Southsea is obviously a beachside town. They have all of these pathways, the walls and the benches to maintain and support. Being able to do it in a computerized system that shows you where everything is, and you can click on any one and find out the current state of maintenance, or if an inspection is due, something like that, really helpful. And within Parish Online, you can add any records you like to any of the data records. So if you've got photographs, if you've got inspection reports, anything like that, they can all be put into the data record for the applicable item. Very, very handy way of storing everything. Here's an example of people saying, you know, we were being distressed by the amount of signs. Can you, if you put all the signs up, you can see how many there are that they want to get rid of. Just basically graphic information. Here's an area that wants to know, you know, where are the gritting runs during the winter? Where are the salt bins? How do we make sure that you keep our salt bins topped up? All that sort of thing. And you can send this information to higher authorities because they use the same sorts of mapping information, which we'll get into in a second. I did mention to you cemetery management, which is certainly in the days of COVID was a big thing. And the beauty here is the information can aggregate upwards. So you're looking after your particular cemetery and your particular plot, but the county can view the information from all the parishes, and the government can review all the information from all of the counties and all of the parishes as well, which is very helpful if you're facing a pandemic and you have a sudden need to know, do we have enough spare graves to put people? And the answer actually reassuringly was yes, but it came from this sort of information. We'll go into planning applications in quite a lot, but it's very useful when someone says, I'd like to build a house here, then you can throw on layers of, well, does that tie in with sites of special scientific interest? Does it worry our conservation area? Are the tree planning orders that we have to take into account? All that sort of stuff. The information can be layered on so that you get a much fuller picture of what the implications are of this particular application. And certainly publishing applications so that the rest of the village knows about them is a huge factor. I think the most useful part of Parish Online is what they call public maps, which means that you can take whatever you've put in the system and publish it on your village website with just literally the couple of clicks of a mouse. And the same way, if anyone says, I have a question about something, you can just send them a URL, which they can then view everything you're doing in their browser as well. Really helpful. And the bit I really like is that if you make a change in the system after you've published a public map, the map updates automatically. You don't need to do anything. So it's constantly up to date with any changes that you're making. Great, a great technique. I love public maps. Here's an example of a local village quite near to me, actually, who is using their mapping system to enhance their tourist leaflets. So if you happen to be in somewhere like North Yorkshire or the Lancashire border, then you can enhance the temptation to come and visit you with your mapping system. So case studies are really useful, but the greatest beauty of them is that they store them on the website of Parish Online. There is a tab marked case studies. And the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is that each case study shows you how they got there. So if you decide that what you need to do is to add your allotments, then you can just click on the Hewish Episcopi case study, and they'll tell you the steps that they took to get their allotments put in the simplest way. And so it goes through all the case studies. There are lots and lots of them. So the chances are that when you decide you'd like to do something in Parish Online, it's covered fully for you. So let's go back to the basics so that it always helps to understand what's going on when you're trying to do something. So this is a geographical information system, a GIS, and the reason that helps to know that is that that's what everybody uses at district, county, and central government level. So this system is compatible with all the data that they're holding that is useful to you. In the old days, some of you may remember the ways of presenting information was with this overhead projector on the right. And what you would do is put a transparent acetate on the big bright lamp, and that would project the picture onto the screen. And then you would take out your felt tip pen or possibly another layer of plastic and layer it on top so as to enhance the data. And we're doing exactly the same thing in Parish Online. It's all driven by layers. It's just that this is a modern way of doing what we used to do 50 years ago. So the layers, as we explained, come from all over the place. And here you can see that there's the land registry layer on the top picture, and then a bit from DEFRA underneath, giving a bit more detail. And then Historic England are bringing in their grade 2 listed houses. And then we're sort of making sure the photography is available. And although on this picture, there are all these layers shown separately, they overlay on top of each other to give you a much more comprehensive picture. And you can switch them on and off as you need to get the best understanding of the particular subject you're studying at the time. We did talk about location-based data. Basically, most of the information that you see, the dots, each one represents an address, and each one you click on will give you some information about it. And most importantly, in the case of Historic England, it gives you the link to their website, to the particular record associated with that house. So hugely time-saving. You don't have to look anything up. It's all just a matter of a click away. And as we mentioned, you can create your own layers, and we'll be doing that today. So what are these layers? Well, the layers, there are 3 types, right? You can have points, which are things like bus stops, grid bins, all the usual things, dog poo bins. Then you can have lines, which are things like the boundaries of fields or recreation areas, or footpaths, things like that. And then polygons, which is basically everything else that isn't a line or a point. You can only have one of these geometries per layer. So if you're trying to show anything that could be both a polygon and a point, you need 2 layers to demonstrate it, but that's a piece of cake. You just put the layers on top of each other. So, and this is crucial when we start creating layers, and you'll see why later. So some hints before we get going. You're much better off using a mouse. I know people do like trackpads, particularly people with laptops, but I recommend a mouse in terms of being easier to control. Go with the main names for the browser. All right, Internet Explorer is way too old nowadays. It just won't do it. And if you're really bright, then you'll be using Opera anyway. And the obvious is stated here. So let's go into it. This is me doing the driving for a bit, but then it'll be your turn. When you turn on Parish Online, what you get is this screen. And what you're seeing here is on the right-hand side. This is the Ordnance Survey digital map of the United Kingdom. This is their high definition digital map. So it doesn't get any better than this. On the left-hand side is a column which changes as we go through. At the moment, what it's showing you are the collections of layers. So each of these lines is a title, and then the little arrows will take you down to a selection of layers underneath. And there are literally hundreds of these. So those of you who've used Google Maps or anything else like that, you'll be very familiar with this. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, or you can scroll left or right, up or down. And this mapping system covers the entire country. So you're not limited to your parish. You can go and do whatever it is that we're going to show you today in any other parish. The big difference is that what you do in your parish can be seen by others who have access to your account. But what you do in another parish cannot be seen by anybody in that parish. All your data is entirely private. But you're not limited to where you can use it, except when it comes to public mapping. So when you're doing public mapping, that is the business of publishing information in a website form or as a URL, you can only do that within the limits of your own parish boundaries. So at the moment, you're just seeing the main map. There's no other layers turned on. The system always starts up in your parish. So I'm living in Long Sutton in Somerset. So this is the starting point for me. And we're all set to go. So what I'm just going to do now is show you the fact that you can scale from the entire country down to a very small scale and the way the data changes accordingly. So zooming right out, you can see that we cover the entire United Kingdom and even those funny people over the water who speak a funny language. But the mapping system is mainly based on the UK. So this is obviously looking at the entire lot. I'm now coming in down to county level. So I've got most of the towns around me in Somerset, and you can see the level of detail has changed enormously. The first screen had about London, Glasgow, and Cardiff on it, and that was all. Now you're looking at individual main roads, B roads, and C roads, and the names of the towns and everything. If I come down to sort of village level, you're now seeing each individual house. You're seeing the names of fields. You're seeing the roads are all named and numbered, and you're seeing the names of individual houses. Going down to an even tighter layer, you're now looking at each individual house having a name or number on it, and you can make out pathways, but we haven't finished yet. Take a look at this corner of this house. We're now jumping into that. And then if you take a look at this corner, we're even going down to look at the very edge of a house here. So you're measuring in centimeters. There's nothing particular about this block here. It just happened to be on the photograph when I took it. But so don't read anything into this. But just I'm giving you an idea of the scale that you can go down to here. Talking about layers again. So the column on the left-hand side talks about the layers. The green colored ones are all to do with the base maps and photographs that you use. And then the beige ones are all the layers that you overlay on top of the base maps. And there, as I said, there are hundreds of them to choose from. You can have several layers turned on at once, and you turn the layers on or off simply by clicking on them. So if I now click on this mini arrow up here, that takes us to this picture, and you can see that there's now 3 levels or 3 layers shown up underneath that Ordnance Survey collection. We're just showing that the main standard map is what we're looking at. That's got a tick in it. And you'll notice that when the layer is closed up, the one that's got a layer ticked in it will have circles on it. So you may end up with several circles down here as you choose different layers and show them all at the same time. But it's just an easy way of seeing which layers you've got turned on. Now in this map, I've switched, you can see here, I've turned off the standard map and gone to the grayscale, and you'll notice that the change is instant. This is often helpful for clarity when you're sort of getting cluttered with too much color and information that sort of distracts you from the point we're trying to make. So we got here by just clicking on there once and then clicking on here once. So the first click was to turn that one off. The second click was to turn this one on. And there is even a black and white scale that you can use for printing if you've still got a printer that only prints in black and white. What I've done here is turned on another layer. So I've gone back to the basic stack, the standard, and I've also turned on the photography. So you've got 2 layers on at once, and it looks a bit, what's the word, vacant. It's neither one nor the other. And this is deliberate. This is enticed to be helpful, because if you just look at pure just information on the map, which I can do, I'm then going to click on this little figure here, and you'll see it brings up a sliding scale, and it shows that the transparency of the main map is at 60%. Which means it's letting through some of the photography. Now, if I switch that down to 0, we get 100% photography. So none of the base map is coming through, but all of the photograph is. And you go the other way and you go back to showing just plain map. And then somewhere in the middle, you get a nice balance of where it's helpful to have a bit of the map information showing through, because there's no names here, there's no indication of which road number. You may even be quite lost when you first go into aerial photography, and it's very helpful to have the map information showing you through just to help you. And you can vary how strongly that comes through. So that slider is really quite useful. And you get the slider by right-clicking on the tick mark in any layer. So I've now turned everything off. You can see I've turned the photography off, and the map is still on the standard, but the whole screen has gone white. Now, this is not deliberate. I've just shown you this because it occasionally happens. And the solution is very simple. You just go and click on the refresh button up on your browser, and all of a sudden the main picture will come back. So just letting you know that occasionally you may end up with a white screen, particularly if you've been using the photographs, the aerial photography, and just clicking on the refresh button brings you back to normal. Now, what we've been doing so far is all the base layers. We're now going to use some of the beige layers, which are all the additional ones shown in. And as I said, there are hundreds of them. So they give you a search button to help you sort out what you're going to do. So we're going to click on the search button, and we're going to type in the word flood, and that instantly reduces the number of collections down to 3. So there are 3 collections whose maps underneath have got something to do with flooding. So if we click on the Environment Agency here, you'll see that they've got about 10 maps to do with flooding. And if I click on Zone 3, now bear in mind, I'm living in the Somerset Levels, so we're quite prone to flooding here. So if I click on Zone 3, it's going to show me what happens when it rains a lot. Basically, we disappear underwater. And all of this water is all over the fields. And in some cases, people who are less wise, who built houses, you can see these houses that it gets very close, and in a bad flood, they actually get drowned out. But on the other hand, you can see that the golf course rises up and down, and so most of it is unflooded. And way over here, I mentioned earlier in chatting that we have a naval air station, and that remains completely unflooded. They really knew what they were doing when they built that. So turn off search by just clicking on the button, the X button, and we go back to where we were before. So just to let you know what we've covered so far, we've shown you how to select maps, photographs, and third-party layers. We're going to talk about how you use those now. So what I've done here is selected a layer that we've built up ourselves, and it was to do with the tree charter. So the tree charter gave us 50 trees and said, please do with them what you will, but we'd like you to keep track of them so we can see what happens to them. So giving us 50 trees doesn't show you anything. So I'm going to show you how you can use the map to bring that to life. So the red area is one that we created that shows where we planted the 50 trees. And if I click anywhere in that area, I get the record up here of the data, and it just shows that the trees are now on the land owned by Ruby. We're on their farm. It was a couple of years ago, and I've got 5 attachments here, which are actually photographs of what happened when the trees were planted. So if we click on the plus sign, you'll see that the photographs show up, and to open any one of them, all you need to do is to click on the little green down arrow. And obviously, if you've decided later that you don't want them, you can just click on the red dustbin to delete them. But I'm going to click on a green arrow, and you can see how this immediately brings the trees to life. So we've got the 50 trees planted. Each one's in a little tube so it can grow but be protected from the wildlife around. Each one has got a stake to hold it upright. This pipe is a drain that's got nothing whatsoever to do with the trees. And I like this picture to show you because lo and behold, it really does get wet around here when it rains. And as you can see, it has been raining. So you can take pictures at any time over the future of these trees to keep track of them. So we're going to be able to send to the tree charter pictures of the trees at sort of at 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, whatever. And of course, once they're beyond sapling size, they need to be replanted. And then you can plot the replants on the map and show how they grow. And so if the system is still running in 50 years' time, those 50 trees will still be tracked, the ones of them that survived. And because you can take pictures over time and store them on the record, in the same way, this is how you get a track record of you doing your maintenance properly, you doing your inspections, showing basically that you are running your local council with good governance. And you can take pictures before maintenance and after maintenance to give you an example of what how good a job your contractors are doing. Moving on. I'm going to create some layers and then we're going to have you do it. So a few words about layers in the first place. The only place you can add layers are in the parish layers here. So if you think about all the other stuff, it's come from third parties. The maps come from the Ordnance Survey, the photographs from the aerial photography of GB, nothing to do with you, and therefore they don't want you to mess with them. The same way, the third party stuff all comes from other people. It's their data. You can use it, display it, and sort it as you will, but you can't change it, which is correct, really. However, in the parish layers, you can change everything. We will get into asset register, which is sort of somewhere between the two in terms of the capabilities. And we'll cover that later. Now, when you create a new layer, you need to think what you're going to be doing with it and what it will contain, because one of the first things you're going to have to determine is what geometry you want it to be. Is it going to be a point? Is it going to be a line? Is it going to be a polygon? So depending on what you're creating this layer for in the first place, that's the geometry that you're going to want to use. So I'm now going to get you started. For those of you who wish to participate, and I hope that you will. What it's going to mean, though, is that you're going to be able to switch from one screen to another, unless you're running two screens simultaneously, sorry, one window to another within your computer. So you're going to have the Zoom session that we're in at the moment, which will be showing you what to do and how to do it. But you'll also have your Parish Online screen where you'll be actually doing it. And I hope that you are very familiar with moving from one to the other. But in case you're not, I've given you the instructions here. So as a starting point, it helps you don't have anything else running in your browsers except the Zoom session and the Parish Online session. It doesn't matter if you do, particularly if you're very comfortable with working with multiple windows, but I have had issues where people get lost. You can, if the Zoom session is running in a Zoom app on your computer, then you just jump from the Zoom to the browser with Alt-Tab. If you're both running in the browser, if you're running Zoom in your browser and Parish Online, then you can use the Control key. So if, say, the Zoom is in the tab 1 or the first one and the Parish Online is in tab 2, just go Control 1 or Control 2 and you'll jump from one to the other. That's the basics. I'm hoping you're all happy. Let me know if you have any troubles. Better to use sound to shout at me because I'll be concentrating on the screen and often see people raising their hands. All right, this is the bit that I'm talking to you first. You don't need to do this yet. What we're going to do is, this is the sort of the planning of it. We're going to need a title. So I'm suggesting if you put your name and then the word test after it, that helps you track it down later and get rid of it if you want to. We're going to choose a geometry type. I don't care which one you choose. You can do a line, pointer, or a polygon, but for the examples, I'm using a polygon. The description is optional, but very useful. So you can use whatever you like in the description, and we'll tell you what it needs to be when we get there. And although you need at least one column of data in a layer, we're going to put in 3. We're going to have a name column, we're going to have a date column, and a status column. The name will be a text type. The date, surprisingly, will be a date type. And the status will be a slight variation on text. We're going to have some allowed values in there just so that you can see what they do. And the allowed values we would like to have, again, you can choose whatever you like, but I'm suggesting not yet started, under construction, and finished. Because for this exercise, I'm assuming that we're going to build a new pavilion on the recreation field. That's my assumption. What you do is up to you. But we need to go through, what we'll be doing is going through the motions of creating this layer. Okay, this is where you now get the time to play. So I'll just show you what to do here, and then please go ahead and do it in your Parish Online. So we're going to create a new layer. So you want to go up to the top menu where there should be create, and you get the chance to add a new layer. Now, if anybody doesn't have the chance of doing that, then we can work around that, but I need to know. So Go ahead, please, on your Parish Online and select New Layer. And I'm moving to the next slide. It brings up a mini menu, or not, I'm sorry, a pop-up called Create a New Layer. And the first thing you're going to do is enter the title. Just type in, I've suggested your name and the word test. And when you're ready, click on the next button. A word of caution, the title that you put here is what ends up in the left-hand column, the brown column, beige column. So you need to make it no wider than the beige column, which is why we have a sort of a short form title and a long form description coming up on the next slide. So when you're ready, click on the next button and you get the Create New Layer pop up, where the first thing you want to do is select a geometry, and you can choose any one of the three there by clicking on the down arrow. I'm going for polygon. In the description underneath, you get the chance to explain what it is you're doing. Now this is quite useful for later. You may come back to a layer in 6 months' time or 2 years' time, or somebody else will come in and they can't work out from your title what it is that that layer does or why you created it in the first place. So this is your chance to just put in a little description, a better description of why you created it and what it does. You don't need to put anything today, but I've just put in a few examples for you to use. And when you're set, click on Next. So now you're getting the chance to add columns to your data. It should show absolutely nothing available. You get a sign saying no data available. And you're going to fix that by clicking on the plus sign at the top right of the mini window. And it will pop up then and with a layer called Name, which is a type text, and the word Add Plus on the right-hand side. That's exactly what we want. So you can leave it like that and click on plus for the next one. This one is also called Name and a text type. And you get a red warning line that says you must have unique names for your column. So you're going to have to change that name on the second row. And if you remember, we wanted this to be called Date. So just put your mouse on the word Name, delete the word Name, and type in Date instead. And then in the middle column where it says Type, you click on the down arrow and move from text to number. I'm sorry, text to date. I beg your pardon. And then when you've done that, we're ready for the third and last layer. So you click on the plus sign at the top right again. And now you've got the third one. Similarly, you need to change its word from name. I suggest you call it status. We're going to leave it as a text file, but this time we're going to click on the Add Plus to the right of the third row. So this time I click on Add Plus, and it says add a value. And we're going to add 3 of these. So the first one, you can just type in where it says add a value, type in not yet started. When you've done that, click on the Add button to the right, and it gives you the chance to create a second row. You can call that one Under Construction, and click it again to get a third row, and you can call that one Finished. And when you've got 3 rows in, and I don't care what you've called them, just I need 3 rows, then you click on Confirm. And that brings us back to the picture of everything that we've done. I'm sorry, it's make sure that you're happy with the 3 values, and then you click on that confirm as well. Notice that in Parish Online, you always get the chance to go back and undo any damage that you did. Don't worry about getting things wrong. The system is extremely good at letting you make changes later, and you can't actually do any damage. So don't worry about not doing things exactly the way I've said them. It doesn't matter. But you should now be back on the screen that shows you you've got 3 rows of columns called Name, Date, and Status. And the bottom one, Status, shows you've got 3 items in the Allowed Values column. So if you're all happy with that, click on the green Finish button. And I'm not hearing anything from anybody, so I'm assuming everyone's happy, but do shout if you aren't. So
mine's, on that. Sorry, I was just going to say mine's saved, and then it's saying, oh, perhaps I've clicked, it's saying go back or save anyway. Have I gone a bit too far?
I just say save anyway. what you need to come back to is the main map. Are you back there?
Yes, I am
Perfect.
now, yeah.
Okay, so on the main screen, the new layer won't immediately show to you, that you can't see any change. But if you click under Parish Layers, you'll see that the new layer has been added at the bottom. Now, if you've already got some Parish layers there, you may need to scroll down because the new layers are always added at the bottom. But you should be able to find Katie test or Sue test or whatever it is you've called it at the bottom of the Parish layers. And that does, you don't need to do anything. We're just going to sort of show you that it's there. Now, I'm going to talk to you about required values, all right? When you create those 3 columns, there are no rules about what goes into those columns, but it really helps if you have one of them as a required value, which means that when people create a new feature on the map, they've got to put something in one of those in the required column. And this is important because if people put nothing in there, then it becomes very difficult to find the record later. It's hard to sort of search on nothing. And therefore it's not so easy to get rid of. I mean, it can be done, but it gets confusing. So what we're going to do now is take one of those columns we've just created and change it into a required column. And the way to do that is to go up to the cogwheel on the top right of your corner and click once, and you'll get a drop-down menu, and you want to click on Administration. And that will bring you up with a screen which may be temporarily blank in the middle because the system is downloading the layers that have been created in the past as well as your new one. So if there are lots of layers, it can take a few seconds. If there's none, it'll be instantaneous, and you'll find that you have information in the second column across the screen. So hopefully by now it's all added in. Your layer, again, is the one down at the bottom, so you may need to scroll down to get to it, but when you get to your test layer, just click on it once, please. That just selects it, so it get high. Oops, I've gone too far. Let me go back. I'm sorry, I'm just getting myself back to the right place. All right, clicking on it right should bring up on the right-hand side, you've got a layer that's got the third column, if you will. It's got 2 tabs, one called General and one called Columns. And you need to click on the Columns tab so that the 3 columns that we've created called Name, Date, and Status appear below. You'll see that the search and query lines have already been filled in. That's automatic, that's by default. But we're now going to select one of them to become a required field. And we're going to do it with name. So if you just move your mouse to the blank square opposite name under the required column and just tick it, just click on it once. And you should end up with now the required column having a black tick opposite name. And up in the top right, you'll see that there's a nice bright yellow save icon. Looks like an old style floppy disk. So please click on that. And the system will say, are you sure you want to make changes? And you say, yes, please. So click on the green save. And you'll get briefly, so for about 5 seconds, a green line that says layer saved, and then it will default back to nothing. If there's an instant, the only times you get a red pop-up saying it hasn't been saved is usually when there's been some sort of glitch on the internet. It's probably only very momentary, and you get the chance to save again, it'll do it. I've only seen it twice in 3 years of using this system, so it's quite rare. So when you finish, it's all been saved. We're now ready to go back to maps. So go back to the top right corner, and this time the middle icon looks like a globe, is supposed to indicate maps. So just click on that to take us back to the maps column. On my screen, I've gone to just a summary of where we are. So just we're keeping you up to date with what we've done. So we've created a new layer, which you've called test. In the column of the new layer, we've created 3 columns. We've made the status column to include drop-down boxes, and we've configured the name column to have a required value to it. So you save the new layer and you've clicked on the globe to come back to maps. So what we've done is created a new layer. Now we need to put some data into that layer so that we actually have something to see. So this is the next step. So you need to click in your layer, the one that says test, just right click in it, and that will bring up a mini menu. And the second line on the mini menu is add feature, and you just want to click on that. So I'm going to do that. And what that does then is, and that changes the left-hand column to the data record for your new feature. And you'll notice that the first field is called name, and it's highlighted in red, so you can see that the required field worked. And you'll notice that down the bottom of that column, the save button is grayed out. So it's because there's no information yet in that required name column. Before we put the information there, I want you to move your map to a space where you're going to build this imaginary pavilion. So you want to choose somewhere in your village or town or parish that you know there's a big empty space. It can be a farmer's field, it can be anything you like, or in my case, I'm going to scroll to our recreation ground because I know that that's a nice big empty space. I can put a new pavilion in there. So using your mouse on the right hand on the map side, scroll around and zoom around until you've got yourself a nice empty space that you can put something into. So I'm going to do that. And if you happen to be looking at my screen on Zoom, you can see I've got the recreation ground, nice big empty space in which to put our new pavilion. I'm hoping that you found something that you can do the same way. So now complete the 3 boxes on the right-hand side. You only need to complete the name, put in something like pavilion test or test pavilion or something like that. You can try putting in today's date. Just click on the date field and you'll see how to select dates. That's straightforward. And then on status, you want to click on the mini down arrow so that you can see that the 3 values we put there, not yet started, under construction and finished, are there for you to choose from. And I would choose not yet started or under construction, something like that. Doesn't matter which one. So you'll see that my next slide, if you come back to my screen, just shows those data fields completed. Your screen will show whatever you've put in there. And you'll see that the save button is still grayed out. And that's because we haven't actually put anything on the map yet. So now, as you move your mouse around over the map, you'll see that it changes to a crosshairs, indicating that it wants you to select a place. So just find somewhere to select your start button and click once. And then as you move the mouse, you'll find that a blue line will follow it, indicating the outline of your pavilion. And you can change direction by clicking the mouse once, and then you can turn a corner. So I would draw a straight line representing the side of the pavilion, click once, make a right-angled corner, go off to the right or left, click again, and go around until you've completed your pavilion. And when you finish, double click. And the double click does 2 things. So the first thing it does is sorry, it does the save button.
It's okay, I've done it.
I missed that, sorry?
I'm sorted now, thank you.
Okay, right. So once you've created the pavilion, you'll see that 2 things happen. First of all, it changes color to a nice sort of blue outline. And secondly, the save button in the bottom left corner is now fully available. It's gone from being grayed out to being fully black. So by all means, please click on it and save it. And then what happens is that you get this sort of save successfully line up at the top briefly. And in the left-hand side, you'll notice that the column is now changed to a blank record because it's ready for you to enter something new. And the actual pavilion that you've created is now a nice bright color. So in our case, we're not going to add another feature now. So click on the X opposite the word feature editor at the top of the left-hand column and get rid of it. And you'll now still have your bright red pavilion in the middle of the screen, hopefully. And on the left-hand side, you should see that the layers have now popped back in the column, and your test layer has got a tick mark in it showing that that's the one that you're using. So to show that the data record has saved properly, click anywhere within your red pavilion. So it doesn't matter where you choose, but the left-hand column should now change to the data record that you've created for the pavilion. So you should have a name, a date, and a status. You'll notice only also that the red pavilion has got a blue line around it showing you that that's the one that you've selected, because once you've got multiple features on the same layer, it's not always clear which one you've selected. So it puts it in blue as a highlight for you. This is also the time when you can edit the record. So if you go to the pencil at the top of the feature editor, the left-hand column, you find that you can change the name to anything you like, the date to anything you like, and the status to one of those three choices, or you can add another one. So very editable, very changeable. This is also the point, notice that the word attachments has arrived, and it's showing you don't have any attachments, but it wasn't there until you'd created the record in the first place. So it's only as you go into edit mode that you can add attachments. Now, what I'm going to suggest we do is try just adjusting the shape of your pavilion. And the way that I recommend people to do that is to zoom in and make it a lot larger. So in my case, I'm going to try and align the building with the edge of the field so it matches the boundary. In your case, you can do whatever you want. You can change the shape. You can do that. And the way to do it, having clicked on the pencil to be in edit mode, you then click your mouse anywhere on the blue line surrounding your pavilion, and you'll find that a blue dot will appear, and you can now pull the line in whatever direction you like. Change the shape of the pavilion, make your corners more right angles, whatever they do. And the larger you make, the more you zoom in, the easier it is to do this. So if you happen to be looking at my screen, you'll notice I've zoomed right in to show that the boundary is not in line with the pavilion. And I'm just going to change it to do so. And the way to do it is to pop on a corner, the blue circle comes up, blue dot. You can just pull the blue dot to the edge of the line and you're done. So when you're finished and you've got everything where you want it, then just click on save. And it doesn't matter what shape you've got now. This is just a test. But in my case, it's a very weird looking pavilion. We're just going to add an attachment for exercise. So click on the add attachment button and it'll ask you what do you want to add. Just choose anything that happens to be on your hard disk. It doesn't have to be a photograph. It doesn't have to be a Word document. It can be a spreadsheet. It can be a picture of your daughter's niece or whatever it happens to be. I don't care. No one cares. Just click and add an attachment. The reason I'm getting you to do this is to give you the exercise of, it takes a little time depending on what you're added. If it's a picture with all sorts of pixels and details, it may take a couple of seconds before it's uploaded because you're sending it from your computer up into the cloud. But it will arrive, and after a few seconds, you should see a sign saying you've got the attachment there. So at this point, I'm also going to discuss deleting things. So you can, at this point, if you like, delete this entire record by just clicking on the dustbin at the top of the column on the left, or you can just delete the attachment by clicking on the red attachment dustbin, or you can leave them all there. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to go on to my next slide and would suggest you come back to look at me now, only because we've got some words on the asset register. So I mentioned that the asset register is slightly different from everything else in Parish Online. So it's a structured database, which means it's already been set up for you as a layer. And the columns in that layer are the ones that experience has shown across the country are the sorts of data that you need to keep track of for governance and insurance purposes. So you can have as many records as you like in the asset register, but it's not one of your layers, so you can't change the structure. So the reason for that becomes clear as soon as you realize that there are something like 1,800 other parish councils around the country, all using the asset structure. They all need to keep it the same structure as everybody else. It helps the insurance companies. If you need information to be stored that the asset register doesn't give you the opportunity, then you just add a new layer. And when the time comes to display the information, you can display both layers together, and you've got your information and the asset register information all showing up at the same time. So whatever you put into the asset register is only visible to you and people with an account on your version of Parish Online. So I mentioned earlier that what you do elsewhere is not visible elsewhere, and what you do in your own parish is only visible to your own people that you've given user accounts to. There's a slight caveat to that, but there are a couple of layers which are called national layers. And at the moment, there are only 2, cemeteries and allotments, but I think there will be more coming because it's a great idea. And basically, the outline of your cemetery will automatically be put there if the cemetery people or the allotment people know about it. But the details of filling in the individual bays are, again, only done for your purpose. So the outline of your cemetery and your allotments are visible outside your parish, and you, in fact, can make changes to other people's parishes' allotments. If, for instance, the next door neighbor doesn't have Parish Online, but they do have a cemetery and it doesn't exist on the map, then you can put it on the map for them, and it will be visible to the rest of the country because you're just doing your neighbors a favor. The better favor, of course, is to tell them to get Parish Online, but that's neither here nor there. So there is a completely separate session about the asset register. It's a big topic to take on all it just now. I'm just mentioning it to you now that slightly confusingly, it's neither a third-party layer, which you can't touch, nor is it a parish layer, which you can change to your heart's content. It's somewhere in between where they give you the structure to work with, and you just fill in the information as you wish. All right, a couple of other points. Along the top of Parish Online is a selection of menus. Most of them have got drop-down values when you click on them. Some of them are covered by details in the knowledge base of Parish Online. Some of them are not, but the ones that are not are covered in the user groups help system. And I've got a reference here that you can click on to go to that should you need to during your sort of getting used to Parish Online. But basically what it does is allows you to click on any menu in the system and it tells you how it works. But however, do remember please that the knowledge base that's built into Parish Online, that's that cogwheel in the top right-hand corner. When you click on it, it'll come up with a mini menu, and the second item is help and support. And there's some really great stuff in there. And I do recommend the videos, particularly the shorter ones. They're very good at showing you what it is that you're looking to do. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now because we've got to the end of the formal session, and we're going to do a sort of question and answers if you want one. So let's just come out of here and go to that and see who's there. We've got Sue's gone off video and nobody else joined us, but I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you and talk to you. There you go, Sue. Welcome back. You're still muted though. How are we doing? Was that useful? Did you find it helpful? And do you have any questions?
Found it helpful. I think the art is now in playing with it and putting it into practice.
Good. And you did create a layer, did you yourself?
Unfortunately, no, I didn't, because I haven't got the login details from the guy that does it.
Ah, isn't that irritating? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
He sort of sent me it, and he keeps sending me parish online newsletters. We need to use this for, well, we do use it. You need to be able to use it as the clerk, because I haven't been with them that long, this particular council. And I just, whilst I was listening, I've just been going back through my emails thinking, well, have I got any login details in all of this then? And he hasn't sent me any login details. So it would have been useful if I had them.
Several ways around that, Sue. So if in the ideal world, he's still the administrator and he should be able to create a user account for you.
Yeah.
And if you're the parish clerk, I would strongly recommend that he makes you an administrator.
Yeah.
So that gives you full control of the system. If he doesn't want to do that for some reason, he needs to make you at least what's called a database, a data manager.
Data manager, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise you can't do your job. So ideally, he should make you an administrator, and there's no harm in you having two administrators, that's he and you. But you can't really do your job without being at least a data manager. Okay. If he's forgotten himself how to do it or to get in there, then talk to me and we'll work through it the back way. But I'm not going to go through that with you until it becomes absolutely necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm sorry that you weren't able to play with it yourself, but I hope that you've got enough here. And particularly when I send you the presentation and the video, you'll be able to work through the bits that you've missed.
I'm quite excited actually, because I like messing with things like this.
Brilliant. Well, I've spent 35 years in the IT industry, and I've seen lots and lots of software packages. And this one is a beauty. I think it's absolutely one of the top systems I've seen in my career. So I really, really like it, just in case you hadn't realized.
Well, I'm your worst nightmare, because I'm that person that thinks, oh, what does this do? What does this do?
Oh, that's fine. No.
And then I go, oh gosh, it's broke. It's not working.
Okay. In the email that I will be sending you, I will be mentioning what's called the banter session, and it really sounds as if you'd be the ideal person for the banter session, Sue. So if you happen to be free anytime between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Friday afternoons, there's a free Zoom session where there's a bunch of what I call the usual suspects, who are a volunteer group of parish clerks and councillors who are all very, very familiar with Parish Online. And they get together in the hope that someone like you will pop in and say, how on earth do I do this? Or why has this screen gone green? Or whatever it happens to be. And one of them is colorblind, which is really helpful because he's got all sorts of tips to help people who are colorblind, because there still is a lot of use in Parish Online, even for people who can't see all the colors properly. I just think that if you need help in a friendly, cooperative user environment, then this is the place to come. So I'll send you the link, but it's basically every Friday between 3 and 4. And it's completely free. Yeah. I'll also send you a link to all the training sessions, so that if you decide you want to go through any further training, you're very welcome. And of course, it keeps bread and butter on the table for me. So I'm just enchanted. Otherwise, I'm going to disappear in a puff of smoke. Very sad.
No, I'm excited, and I've only got the one parish council that use it. I am aware of it. I have heard about it before, but didn't understand what it did. I work for 4 councils in total, and I'm a parish councillor somewhere else. So I will be looking to introduce this.
Okay, well, let me mention to you for those other councils then. There is a way of getting Parish Online for free. So, I mean, normally it costs a very modest subscription. I mean, my village, we don't pay anything because we do the free version, but it's about £70 a year, very affordable. The smallest is down to about £30, and even the big towns are only about 1,500. So it's not an expensive system. But if you go to the Parish Online website and look at their free offer, there's an insurance company called BHIB, which basically is a broker for Aviva. And basically they say, if you take your insurance through us, we'll pay for your Parish Online subscription. And that's the way we've done it. And I've known lots of others do it. Not only did we get the advantage of the free software, but we also got a huge reduction in our insurance rates. They're very competitive. So I would strongly recommend that to you for those other councils that you represent that don't have Parish Online.
Yeah.
Take a look at when their insurance is due to renew, and at least ask for a quote from BHIB, because they don't do anything else with small councils and towns and so forth.
Yeah.
They're very good at it. They're very nice people, and they are brokers for Aviva, which is a pretty reliable insurance company.
Yeah, yeah.
So even if they do come from Norfolk, so it's the old Norwich Union, you know, it's now Aviva.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's just a name change. I'm here all the time. I'm sorry, one more thing. There is a thing now called the Community Forum, which is like an online system where if you have a question, you can pop it in there and anyone else who happens to be online can answer it, or they'll come across it later and give you an answer. And that's as part of the knowledge base. So when you click on that cogwheel, the top right corner, and click on help and support, you'll see there's a tab there for community, and that's well worth going into as well, because if you can't wait until Friday afternoon to ask your question, you can pop it up into the community forum and someone will get to you more quickly than that. Just a word of warning, it asks you to sign in, even though you've come in from Parish Online, it wants you to create a new account. So that's irritating, but there's no way around that, unfortunately. So although you think I'm already in, I'm already a user, it still asks you to create a new account in the knowledge base. It only takes a moment and it's well worth doing. So, okay. Any more questions before I throw you away?
Which training module would you recommend next then? Is this sort of
the
next step?
The first one I would suggest is 102. So you've just done 101. Okay. Unfortunately, the numerical order is not correct. The next one after 102 is 104, irritatingly. But I will get around to changing that in due course, but I haven't done so yet. But so 102, 104, and then the rest go 103 and 5, 6, 7, etc. But entirely up to you. What I tend to find is that once people have got over the initial hump of learning it, then they don't need further training. They teach themselves. But the later lessons are more about, you know, clever ways of saving time and that sort of thing. But by all means, do sign up. The email I send you sends you where to go to sign up. It tells you all about the courses. You can click on them and find out which one teaches which. And hopefully it's all been very helpful to you.
Yeah, definitely.
If you come across a topic that isn't covered and you think, well, I really like a training session in that, would you please let me know? Because I'm always delighted to help out. And any comments you want to make about how I can improve these sessions, throw them at me. So it's been lovely to meet you both. I hope you have a great time playing with Parish Online. Sue, come back to me if you have an issue getting your user account created for you.
I will. I have your email address.
And good luck to you both. Hope you have lots of fun.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to see you. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.